The next is marketplaces. Now, marketplaces initially was eBay and Amazon, but it's much more than that. Next have a marketplace, and you've got all the people that look fantastic, feel unique. Etsy, there are lots and lots of these marketplaces, and for your product, it shouldn't discount it. They are all very difficult to manage. Amazon in particular, if you sell your products direct through them, you have to make sure that you fulfill certain customer services requirements. If you have too many issues, they delist you. So the compliance and customer service requirements are very, very high. But if you've got a lot of product and you want to sell stuff, Amazon, if you're able to list the product first, then you've got great control over how that product is placed and promoted across Amazon. And you can advertise on Amazon and of course on some of the other marketplaces. So don't discount it. But the problem with all these marketplaces is that if you want to make sure that you get a prominent position, you need to make sure that effectively your pricing's right, you're listed correctly to make sure people find your product first, and also that you're able to make sure that Amazon or Etsy or Next can prioritize your product against other people. Otherwise, it's going to be a frustrating experience. The other thing to remember about why online through your own website is the most valuable is because it's the only way that you can actually engage directly with your customers. If you sell to a retailer, wholesale, or through a marketplace, they capture the customer information, you don't. So ultimately, I think it's got to be in your interest to try and sell as much as you possibly can through your own website. So maybe you need to sell a bit through retail and need a bit of wholesale, maybe because you need to just shift volume or you need to create brand awareness, but where ultimately you want to build your real brand equities within your own site, your own social media pages, and get people to buy on your line. You'll get their email address, their mobile number, and those that really like you can engage with them directly over time to get them to buy more. Now, just in terms of costs, so it's probably worth thinking about the fact that a marketplace is probably going to charge an average about 15%. So even though you might be able to sell at full price, that's going to affect your net margin. The other thing that's worth thinking about is that if you're selling yourself, to find ways for people to come to your site, either from referral or to keep coming back through a loyalty scheme, that's going to cost you money. And most of the schemes on there, whether you do it through a plugin, through Shopify, or use one of the other platforms, you can pay up to 6% of the order value to finance that scheme. And the other thing, of course, is that if you want to do a loyalty referral, you need to reward the customers as well. So that's on top of it. I think it's best to look at this whole element and treat it as a marketing cost. So when we're looking at the ROI, the costs are captured in your advertising and marketing. So when you're looking at your margin, you think about how much am I spending on advertising, how much am I spending on agents, but also how much is it costing me in my loyalty and referral schemes to generate that business. And if you've got time, you should be able to compare the different propositions against each other, which is the one that's most effective. Okay, wow, now we're into the accounting type stuff. So apologies now if this all gets a bit complicated, but I think it's important for you to find ways to model this on an Excel spreadsheet so you can actually track the various steps and stages. And if you're using an agency or you've got your own marketing team or you're doing it yourself, just start to create the discipline to understand what it's costing you and what numbers make sense for your business. What's sustainable? What can you keep doing that pays for itself, that makes it all worthwhile? So to try and keep this simple, I've broken it down just into two core channels. The first is web. This is when you're selling yourself. The first thing to think about is how much can you afford to spend on digital advertising? How much you can spend on ads through Google, Facebook, or whoever. You then need to have a good understanding as to what that click, i.e. when the customer clicks on the ad, or if it's an impression when they scan the ad, what it's going to cost you. So a little bit of testing here to figure out whether it's going to cost you 20 pence or whether it's going to cost you 20 pounds. The sooner you do that, the better. And what you find is that over time, because this has been going on for the last 6 to 7 years, is that all businesses, whether they're selling a service to a business or a product to a consumer, you find that Google has naturally found the market rate. So if you're a SaaS business and you're selling a software solution, it'll be pounds. And if you're selling like accounting solutions, it could be like 10 quid a click. But if you're selling beauty, it could be 20 pence. So you'll find that when you're starting to bid, that there's actually there's been a natural process of selecting where those prices are. Interestingly, when COVID started, lockdown started, I assumed the cost would go up, but it went down because I think a lot of traditional businesses were looking to save money. So actually, we found the cost of paid ads has actually dropped, not gone up. So the first thing is how much you want to spend, how much it's going to cost you to generate to get that click. Now remember, if you're using any tools, the best one to use is Google Analytics. It's free. It's not perfect, but it's free, and it will capture all the traffic. As long as you're tagging everything correctly through your website, it should capture all the traffic, depending on what sources or where that traffic came from. And the thing to remember here is that while you pay for a click, Google will measure traffic as a session. And the difference between a click and a session is that a click is literally a visit, you've gone to the site, but a session is you're actually the person's site to navigate through the site. So there's a rule that I think it's 20 seconds, or there's a certain amount of time you need to spend when Google determines that's a session rather than a click. That's important because what you don't want to do is if people are just going to the site and realizing it's, they thought they were looking to buy a saw and they go to a site that relates to something completely different, they'll come straight out. So that's really, you've actually spent money getting someone to the site who's just not interested in what you're selling. So the important thing is that you want to track people who they're looking for a saw and they go to a site and it's Screwfix. Oh, great, I can find a saw on here. Now Google will start to measure the journey of that customer through the site. So the first thing is that traffic here, we're talking about sessions, so it's people who are actually actively navigating through the site. And what you're going to do is you're going to measure how much traffic you've got from that spend. So that's what your paid traffic. So if it costs you £10,000 to get 10,000 sessions, it's cost you £1 for each session. Okay. But of course, over time, you'll get free traffic. So this will be people who either know you, they've saved your URL, or they found you through social media, or they've found you through an affiliate, or someone's promoted your business. And that's nominally free because they've gone direct to your site. But the reality is that they may well have gone through various steps, maybe on Facebook or Instagram, to get them to that point. So there's this concept of what's called attribution, where Google will look at the various steps of all your journey. The best thing to do is just keep it really simple. But if you're starting to do this, and just look at what paid traffic, what it's cost you based on last click, and what's free. And then when you get more sophisticated, you can think about, right, we'll start looking at the journey about where they go from Instagram, Facebook to Google. But start off simply, this is how much we're going to spend. This is how much traffic we're getting from that channel. And that's how much that traffic's cost us. And then we can see how much that traffic then converts into a sale. And similarly, the free traffic, which is people going direct to your site, or they've searched for you and they've clicked on your URL without clicking on an ad, that's free. So track that as well. And what you'll see is over time, when you start, you'll have no free traffic, but you should, when the business gets mature, more than half your traffic should be free. I think that's a good benchmark to say. You should be probably 50 to 55% of your traffic ultimately should be free, because it's people coming back to you. Your site's starting to work really, really well, and you're not reliant on people clicking on an ad that they've found from a keyword search. So really, the next key measure is how much of those sessions, some that you've paid for, some you've got for free, how many of those convert into a sale. So the next thing is it's your conversion rate, and here you want to be looking at between 3 and 5% of that traffic converting into an order. So this is when customers go in and actually place an order. And what's quite interesting here is that sometimes your conversion rate's lower, not because there's a problem, but there's a problem with the product or what you've offered. It's simply because there's a problem with the website. So if you see your conversion dropping, you need to think about, well, are people coming out of the checkout, or is there? So sometimes just keeping an eye on the mechanics of the site. That's why it's great to use things like BigCommerce and Shopify that do it all for you. Follow their guidance. Don't do anything clever. Don't build it yourself, and they'll make sure that you follow all the best rules to make sure the customer journey really works well, and you've got the right payment options for them. Okay, so you've got the order. So the next thing is what you want to do is get them to spend as much money as possible. So key target is what the value of that order should be, or the average order value or basket value. So the trick is to get them to maybe not just buy one, but maybe 2 or 3 products. So can you suggest to them when they make the order that they, instead of just getting a saw, they get a workmate as well, and maybe some gloves, that kind of thing. So you're targeting spend, you're targeting the cost for clicks, you're targeting the conversion of clicks to sessions, and you're targeting how many of those sessions convert into effectively an order. And next is you put a value to it. That gives you your gross order value. So basically what we've done is, and you can do this on a simple spreadsheet, you can go from spend to gross orders with 3 or 4 key assumptions which you can track over time. The next is marketplaces. So here, keeping it really, really simple. And the reason I want to demonstrate this is that if you find the web one too complicated, start with this and then start building in the digital marketing drivers in terms of spend, traffic, etc. And here we just start with you target the total number of orders. So if it's all getting too hard for you, that you just say, right, I'm just going to target, we're going to do 1,000 orders a month, and we're going to target a spend per order. And that's as good a means of setting some discipline around targeting your business as any other. But if you can make the next leap, which is the one above on web, to start thinking about how making you spend, you'll just have a better insight and a better you're better able to control your spend and actually track performance of your business. Okay, so what are the 4 key things we're trying to do here? The first one is what can we do to generate more traffic, get more people to the site? How do we get more of that traffic to convert into orders? How do we get the customers to spend more? How do we get that AOV or basket size to be bigger? And most importantly, how do we get the customers to come back? Okay, so we've got from orders. So how do we go from orders to profit? So again, apologies for this complicated chart. I've used these charts with clients actually, and we've used these to then populate and create simple Excel spreadsheets. So if again it's too complicated, just drop out some steps, just focus on what you really understand, and just I'd always say keep it simple. And as you get confident, then you can introduce more complexity. But I think if you're starting a business and you need to think about what the core economics are, I think it's important you follow these steps. Right, so we've got the gross orders. The next thing is how many cancellations are you going to get? So for example, if you're selling even if you're selling a SaaS product, it's quite possible there's a free trial or a 30-day free sign up, or it's monthly or 12-month subscription. So this applies to B2B SaaS businesses as much as it does to people selling product to consumers. And the cancellations, in my experience, vary from like 3 to 5% for beauty products to 30 to 35% for apparel. I mean, it's a huge variety. And I think you need to get a good sense as to what that's going to be for your business. So you strip out the orders. The cancellations gives you net orders, and I'm assuming you're VAT registered. So you then need to take your VAT off to determine what your revenue is, what your sales are. Okay, because the VAT, all you're doing here is you're just collecting tax for the government. And that's made up of probably 2 elements for your business, particularly if you're a B2C business. You've got your product revenue, which is what you're getting for selling your products, and then shipping if you're charging for shipping. And of course, with shipping, it's not so much getting more income, but it might just be the little nudge you need to get customers to buy that second item or third item to get above the free shipping threshold. So again, here, best thing to do is look at your competitors, see what they're offering, and you'll find that people, depending on what the products are, will offer free shipping from anything from 25 quid to 90 pounds, depending on what's being offered or what market you're in. Okay, so how do we go from product revenue and shipping revenue to profit? So product revenue, obviously the most important element here is cost of goods. And we need to think about obviously terminal stock as well. And we'll talk a little bit more about that on the next slide. But your product margin here is really key. So that's effectively what you've sold your product after all your cancellations, and you've taken all your VAT. This is what you keep from your sales, less the cost of those products. And so I'm hoping that you guys have got some basic warehouse management systems or tools that you can actually manage the cost, the individual cost. So when you're selling something, you know what that cost is, whether it's when you first purchased it or whether it's an average cost. It's really important that you understand what your key margin is. So the next element is shipping. And of course here, you've got delivery costs. And I can tell you now, you can spend 3 days researching all the different options. Raw mail will always be the cheapest, but not necessarily the best. And here you've got the options of same day shipping. You've got the options of 24 tracked. Obviously here, if you're selling overseas, you need to think about what's the best proposition for your customers. And interestingly here, you'll find that drop-off centers, which are cheaper for you, are actually great for customers. So I think the best thing to do here is to really try and find ways to make it most appealing and interesting to your customers. So offer them extras and maybe charge them. So if it's same day or drop-offs. I think people generally see that as an added value. Give them that option. And if you're going overseas, the key thing here is if you're shipping from the UK, you want that time to be as short as possible. Now, I know with Brexit coming, we don't quite know what that looks like, but I'm assuming that if you're having to ship from the UK, Brexit will cause some disruption. But if you're in Europe, you want to make sure that you're located in an area that can supply your customers in the shortest period of time. So that's really quite important. So here, your shipping margins, effectively what you've generated, that's what the cost is for shipping those products. But if you're selling really, really well, you might have a negative margin here because obviously you've got people to spend more and you get offering them free shipping. But don't lose sight of it because these costs can make a difference to your overall margin of the business. You need to just be aware of what you're doing and why you're doing it. So we add the product margin, shipping margin together, that gives you your gross profit. And now there are three areas here that I like to think that you need to think about before you measure what the contribution is for that specific order. And so you just need to think about how these apply to your business, whether it's you're selling a service, whether you're selling a product, or whether you're selling to consumers or to businesses. And there's three elements here. The first one is the cost of fulfilling that order. So if you're selling a product, you've got to store it, you've got to pick and pack it, you've got to put it in a box, maybe you want to put a card in, you need to package it, that costs money. Whatever you're doing, customer services is key, not just for dealing with any queries, but potentially for upselling, because it may be that there are some consumers who still want to talk to you. And if you're selling high value items, making sure that you've got good abilities to communicate with people quickly, whether it's over the phone, via chat, via SMS or WhatsApp, really important just to give the customers the confidence to purchase. So don't just look at customer services as like a compliance piece to just deal with problems and complaints. It's also an opportunity for upselling or getting people who are not quite sure to make that first purchase. And the next is transaction cost. And here I'm talking about the cost of processing the payment, whether that's Sage Pay, whether it's PayPal, whether it's Klarna. You need to look at those costs as well. And of course, in the UK, it should be cheap, but if you're taking payments from people overseas, it can get very, very expensive. So you need to weigh up the best solution to ensure that you get people to buy. And PayPal generally is very, very popular across most markets. I would say most online businesses, 50% of sales are on PayPal. But again, you need to be aware that people overseas, if they're using some weird bank account, it could cost you 3 or 4% to process that payment safely through your payment services provider. So here, if we're looking at gross profit, the two bits here that I think are most important is to make sure that you've done all that great work in terms of generating your sales, but to maximize margin, you need to make sure you're buying as best you can, get your cost price as low as possible, but on a basis that's sustainable. I don't order too much, which you then can't finance. And the next thing is to optimize free shipping. So don't just think about maximize the profit here, but what can you do to encourage people to spend more on product? And in terms of contribution, having a good handle on what your incremental costs are for fulfilling an order are important, but also it's important that you think about how much you're making here, and that when we look at the ROI based on what it's cost you to generate that sale, that it's sustainable. Okay. Right, oh my God, another finance chart. And apologies now. So this is a generic one. I did this for a client actually, where we were trying to think about how we could demonstrate the business has started, startup, we're looking to scale up. How could we scale up? Could we do it on a sustainable way? Was there a good basis for an investment to back the business that we can actually support the growth of the business? It's not actually their numbers, I've changed them, but it gives you an idea to really give confidence to somebody who's looking to invest. Have we got an economic model that's scalable and sustainable, i.e., if we put more money in, scale up the business, can we still generate sales on a profitable basis? So that's what this is all about. And also what I've done here is made that distinction between the initial purchase and lifetime value, because it could be if you're selling products that should encourage repeat purchase, you may lose money on your first sale, but you'll make money by getting customers to buy 3, 4, 5, 6 times a year.